Hey, Sacred Soul family. Jenna PinkStone here, signing on. I wanted to speak today about how incredibly psychic everyone actually is, and most of us don't even know it. It can be really easy to become preoccupied with seeking out the visions of other seers, others who have realized the gifts that they have innately within them, others who purport to be able to see or sense something that you cannot about yourself. That latter there is simply incorrect. There's nothing, absolutely nothing, that someone can see or sense something about yourself that is not privy to you also. You are your own keeper. You are the only person that has been there with you inexplicably and without any exception since the time of your birth on this planet. And it becomes very easy for us to farm out the wisdom that is already deeply within us. It becomes a lot more simple, and many of us, myself included, have become lazy in at certain times of our life when we just want to be shown the answers, when we really don't want to do the legwork. We want someone else to simply peer in, look inside of our little bubble and tell us, the answers that we seek. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with consulting other perspectives other than our own. That has provided me with much guidance and much clarity at times when it was very difficult for me to peer inside of myself. I just think that it's important for us to not, disregard the fact that there is a seer within us all. And we oftentimes do this without even knowing it, without knowing that we ourselves have extrasensory gifts. And it becomes habitual for us to seek out the visions of others who oftentimes, put themselves up on a pedestal above all the others. Oh, well, I am clairvoyant. I have psychic gifts where others do not. I don't think that many of them mean to do this, but by distinguishing between do you have psychic gifts or not, it kind of brings into consideration the muggle and the wizard world of Harry Potter, does it not? Like, this is the boring world, the world of people who are cut off from everything spiritual. And this is the wizard world where those people with those talents are offered access and, are privy to some knowledge that the entire muggle world is cut off from. And that's just simply not the case. That is a fiction. Honestly, simply by being born here, especially at this time, I'm not going to discount the fact that peoples from earlier times also had extrasensory gifts. They absolutely did. But during this age, we are coming into a time when our sun's rays are absolutely more intensified. And sun is life. The sun it's simply radiating energy, a ball of radiating energy. And that is it shines that energy down on this earth. There's a lot of political uproar about this and what the sun is and whether it's what space is, what the earth is. I'm not getting into that today. Few people are going to argue with the fact that the sun offers energetic rays that fuel the earth as it is, as well as us and all life on this planet. It does so in a very 3D physical sense, in that, it helps the plants to grow. It even provides us with nourishment and vitamins, vitamin D that we need to live, I would argue that everything, including the sun and ourselves, have a physical self and a spiritual self. Some would call it the etheric self. There's many planes of existence of every given thing that you can think of. And they sit like pages atop one another, kind of like in a book. They exist simultaneously together, kind of mirroring one to the other as well. And the sun is no different than that. And as it becomes more intensified, as many would agree with me, I know that at a time when I was a child, I could play outside all day. And, maybe I'd have a little sunburn across my nose, but now it happens a whole lot more quickly. During a time when I was journeying inward, it became very clear to me that the sun is absolutely something that heals, something that gives off energy that we are able to absorb in ways other than that of the physical. And sometimes it can become overwhelming. It can be too much at one given time in one sitting. And people that are being born into this day and age are being subjected to that huge amount of energy that is radiating upon us all. And many of us are awakening, myself included, to these extrasensory gifts that we did not know we had. So, without further ado, I'm going to share a story, and hopefully it will help you to remember certain instances in your own life when your psychic gifts were actually working and you were using them, and maybe you didn't know it at the time, but it will help you to refer and reflect back on those experiences to empower you forward on your journey, so that you can be aware of how powerful you actually are. So I was out to eat with my husband. We were actually going out to eat after dropping our kids off at a parents' night out kind of thing. And our favorite restaurant, we, just came upon to realize that they were closed. The kitchen was closed because of some private event. And we're like, okay, I guess that was unexpected and random. What now? And we were in a neighboring town, and we didn't really have a plan B. And out of nowhere, I just thought of this restaurant that I knew of, I'd never been to, called Reignite Station. Some of you in the area might know that particular place. However, and it was weird the way that it popped into my mind. Never discount something that happens seemingly randomly, that some of us called coinkydinks or coincidences. This is very telling of something larger at play, that you might not see all of the extenuating circumstances surrounding why that popped into your orb of knowing. So here we go. We're headed out to this other restaurant, Reignite Station, and we sit down, and we've never been here, but there's this table that's sitting right in the middle of an otherwise very crowded restaurant on a Friday night. And my husband and I are usually the type that like to sit kind of on the edge, off to the back, but this is obviously our table. And it's surrounded by a cacophony of other conversations, of people enjoying, their beverages, their meals, and it's very well lit, so there is no hiding. We proceed to sit down, and everything kind of fades away except for the two of us, and we're enjoying our evening. And my husband asks me why I happen to choose this place. We'd never even been here, and it's actually pretty good. And, what gives? What made you think of it here, since it's not even in the town where we live? it was really strange that it just, I came up with it. And I recalled that there was a gentleman, I'll call him Larry for the purpose of this video, to, preserve anonymity of others. But I used to work with Larry. I used to be his team lead. And he he caused me a lot of challenges. He was in his 70s at the time that I was his team lead, and I was in my early 20s. So that in and of itself, you can imagine, creates, certain kinds of rifts and frictions. He had been working at the company where we were working at for, over a decade at the time. And he did basically exactly what he needed to do to get by and nothing more. To collect his paycheck, to not cause any rifts, to not cause any problems with, his job. But he did not do any more. And it was up to me to give him feedback on that and, what it was that he was supposed to do to improve. And, that was my job description. And it was uncomfortable, to say the least. Every time I had to bring Larry into this, secluded room and deliver this information to him of, what exactly he needed to be doing differently to improve on his phone calls. And every single time he just kind of chuckled at me like, yep, that's not going to happen. And it was, I remember feeling so uncomfortable at the time, but when I was recounting this to my husband, it was making me laugh. And I remembered all of the things that Larry did, bringing in goodies and treats for everyone in the department, making things, going to these obscure little German bakeries and finding relishing the finer things in life and sharing them with his friends at work, and how much I learned from him about different ingredients and different ways of preparation of in the kitchen specifically, because I also shared a love of cooking just like he did. And I was sitting and going on and on about Larry, who I worked with 5 years ago, and this was one of his favorite restaurants. And he talked about it all the time at work. Now, I had long since left this job that, I had been working at like 5 years prior to this evening I was sharing with my husband. And I was going on and on as I usually do, and my husband is a lot quieter than me, and he's very sweet about listening. But whenever I learned what I learned the very next day, it shook me to my core. When I got onto social media and I was informed that Larry had passed away the night before, the very night that my husband and I were out to eat. And to confirm that this happened, that this moment of me connecting with him seemingly at the time of his passing, I hurriedly asked my husband, "Do you remember who I was talking about that night?" And he was like, "No." It was, I guess he wasn't listening as well as he usually does or something. I'm not sure what prompted this next incredible synchronicity to occur. I prompted him. I said, "You remember the guy who I told you it was his favorite restaurant and that's why we went?" I was trying to help him recall the moments of the evening. And I have no doubt he was listening to me at the time, but my husband has a way of kind of like taking out the trash of his brain and not holding on to information that's not relevant or useful anymore. And he just did not remember. And I just kept pushing him because it was so important to me for him to state the same person I was talking about, to confirm and show him what I'd just seen on social media, that this person had passed away and I had connected with their spirit at the time of their passing. And I was laughing, I was enjoying all that he had brought to this world for me and for our coworkers, and the energy that he brought to the room. And I was really trying to help him to remember that so that he could share this experience with me. Well, being poked and prodded and made to have a response, my husband finally responded in a way that really irritated me. He finally said, and I'll make up another name for this other person that he said, John Ashmore. And this other person is an ex-boyfriend that I had long before I ever met my husband. And I said, really? You think I was talking about John Ashmore that night? Are you kidding me? And he's like, okay, whatever. I don't know what you want from me because I don't remember. Well, I went ahead and I shared with him the crazy event. And then he said, oh, yeah, you were talking about Larry, the guy you used to work with. I'm sorry. Now I remember. Okay, whatever. Big roll of my eyes at that moment in time. Well, who actually reached out to me the very next day, right after he and I had this discussion, who I'd not talked with for years, who had just gotten out of prison and was feeling like at the very end of his rope, and like I had always been a lifeline for him to keep him back on the straight and narrow, to help him to, subside the addictions within him and make better decisions about his life as a father. And who other than John Ashmore contacted me the very next day? This happened in a sequence of 2 days. And these two men who I'm recounting for you, whose names have been changed, obviously, but the energy remains. They had nothing at all to do with each other, except, and I was the only link between them. I had very different relationships with, like, both of them at very different life stages within my, but I was acting as a conduit, acting as a receiver, so to speak, because I myself have been open to meditating, open to leaving myself available to receive. You see? I actually picked up on the energies that each of them were individually expressing and or experiencing. Now, this happened randomly. This did not happen at command, right? And many psychics who peddle their gifts, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm actually opening my own business in order to provide guidance and light and understanding for those who are looking for my own perspective to shine light in their lives. But the kind of psychic gift that I have just described for you is not really something that's incredibly marketable. It simply happens. And sometimes that happens to all of us. We've all had that experience where we were thinking of someone and then they call you or text you or message you, or you run into them, or something of that nature. Our gifts come in different forms and different instances, and they are expressed in different ways. Some of us have an inexplicable green thumb. A very close family member of mine is like that, where I'm certain, and she doesn't even know this about herself, she can feel the energy of a plant when it needs something, when it's calling out for something different. And that's not just water or sunlight. It wants to be in a different area of the yard. She feels it within her, but it comes so naturally to her that she doesn't think anything strange about it. But it doesn't come naturally within me, you see. So I can recognize that beauty of a gift within her. Do you see? It's important for each of us to recognize the gifts within ourselves, though, because of the empowerment that comes along with that awareness. The empowerment and the knowledge that there's more than what meets our physical eyes. We rely on our eyes so much for so much to get us throughout the course of our day that it becomes the end all be all of you have to see it to believe it. And that's simply not the case. But it's it's funny that throughout literary history, there's all of these different themes in these different plays and works, masterpieces even, where a character will lose their physical sight to gain their spiritual awareness. And I find that incredibly interesting. I feel that there is a sight, a sensation within us all. And, it can even be likened to the spidey sense, right? Where we feel something. We feel that it's right. And that's where all of these different terms come. The clair-knowing, clairsentience, clairvoyance, clairaudience. I tend to hear things, but it's not hearing with my ears, but the only way I know to describe it is like hearing the way that you do with your ears. And it's so strange that we don't even have words to describe these sensations and these experiences outside of our physical senses. That baffles me. I know that wasn't the case millennia ago when we were more in tune and more connected with these extrasensory abilities that each of us have. So I hope that you'll share with me your own experiences that are similar to this. It can only strengthen the collective of our ever-present knowing that I already know exists. I know it. And I know that hearing the stories, hearing the experiences of others it will only help to weave additional confirmations, if you will, that absolutely is why we're here, to reconnect with that as well as with each other. I hope you'll reach out to me if you are interested in my personal perspective and a reading of your own energy and soul signature. I would love to share that with you based on what it is that you're looking for and any goals that you may have in mind. My name is Jenna PinkStone, and I will be leaving all of the information on how to get in touch with me in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate it. Take care.